2018 was a magical year for Broadway, where shows like Frozen and Mean Girls made their debut. But forget about those flops, because we're here to talk about a much more important show that debuted that season. Of course, I'm talking about The Prom. The Prom, loosely based on a true story, follows Emma, a gay teen stuck in a conservative town in Indiana who has plans to attend the prom with her girlfriend. But when the PTA gets wind of this, they decide to cancel the prom entirely. Then enter Dee Dee Allen and Barry Glickman, two self-absorbed Broadway narcissists who are tired of being called out for being exactly that. They team up with Juilliard graduate Trent Oliver and chorus girl Angie Dickinson in an attempt to reshape their image in the public eye. After scrolling through Twitter, they stumble across Emma's story and decide to head down to Indiana to help. The show was generally well received, with critics praising its comedy, joy, and broad appeal, and eventually earning 7 Tony nominations. A common criticism of the show, however, is that it's not really about Emma. She is the heart of the story, and while the conflict surrounds her, she's not the focus. The A-plot follows these Broadway stars who go on an arc from being self-absorbed to learning to actually care about someone and something else. While it's hilarious watching Dee Dee completely crash a PTA meeting singing "It's Not About Me" while very clearly making it all about herself, it's frustrating that that was the focus just because there aren't many queer stories on Broadway that focus primarily on lesbians. We have Fun Home and parts of Rent, but not much else. So to have this opportunity right in front of you and just be like, was a misstep for sure. The musical ran on Broadway from October 2018 to August 2019, but in the middle of its run, it was announced that a film adaptation was in development with none other than Ryan Murphy serving as director and producer. The movie was a Netflix original and aired on December 11, 2020. What surprised me was that the movie was a nearly identical one-to-one adaptation. While that sounds good on paper, it hurts the story in some ways because things you can get away with on stage don't always work on film. For example, when they show up to the first prom and learn no one's there. In a stage show, you aren't hit with the reality of them having to pull into a silent, empty parking lot. But in the movie, we actually see them pull up to this vacant parking lot, yet they aren't suspicious of something until they set foot in the school. Or take the Love Thy Neighbor, which is a really fun song and a really fun scene, and works great in the musical because musicals in general aren't as grounded and most lessons are taught and learned in musical form. But in a movie, it just makes it really hard to believe that one musical number single-handedly changes the minds of an entire group of homophobic teenagers. Also, I thought they were supposed to be in a really small town in rural Indiana, but somehow they have close access to this high-end fashion mall. There are exactly 4 major changes that they made for this movie. During the acceptance song, they kept Trent's part but cut everything else. During You Happen, they cut Alyssa and Emma's verse, an interesting choice. After Alyssa's mom storms off in the gym, the movie has her show up at the end to reconcile, whereas in the show she just disappears. And then they give Barry about 10 minutes of extra development. So yes, time to talk about Barry. Barry is the movie's biggest sore spot. The casting, first and foremost, is a huge issue. Barry is a flamboyant gay man riddled with stereotypes. There is obviously nothing wrong with being a flamboyant gay man, but when you cast a straight man, James Corden, in that role, it feels offensive and regressive. If the role had been played by a Nathan Lane or a Titus Burgess, someone who could have brought authenticity and actual charm to the role, it wouldn't have pissed as many people off. This brings me back to the Ryan Murphy of it all. Murphy has created hits like Pose, American Horror Story, and Glee, but he also has made some absolute stinkers. He's a very honest showrunner because he admits that he mostly writes for himself. Look at the history of Glee, where they originally had an Indian character named Rajiv, but after seeing Chris Colfer, he was like, no, actually that should be a white gay guy instead. So, of course, when the main criticism of the musical was that Emma and Alyssa weren't the focal point, Ryan Murphy's response was like, yeah, let's actually sideline them more. In pretty much all of the marketing, Alyssa and Emma are either off to the side or just not included at all. Then in the script itself, he not only decided to cut some of the few moments they already had, he used that time he saved to give more to the white gay guy. Barry already had emotional beats with Emma where we learned about how hard it was for him to come out to his parents and have his parents not accept him. He already had his own song where he got to heal a part of his inner child when Emma invited him to her prom. There also, during this musical number, was a really baffling casting choice where they cast this clear child to play Barry as a high schooler. So when they have this moment at the end where he's like smirking to this much older guy, it's kind of awkward. Anyways, the film not only gives him his own new original ballad that plays during the end credits, but they actually cast his mother and give him his whole other arc where he comes to forgive her. But still at Barry's core is just a hurt young boy who just wanted to be accepted by his parents. A story we see start to be mirrored with Alyssa. Alyssa is Emma's closeted girlfriend and played by Oscar winner Ariana DeBose, get it right. She's a popular cheerleader on the prom committee whose mom happens to be the head of the PTA. Alyssa loves Emma but is terrified of her mother's disapproval. There is so much pressure on her to be perfect, and expectation actually hits harder because Alyssa is played by Ariana DeBose, making the character unambiguously black. In the original Broadway show, Alyssa was played by Isabel McCalla, who is of Haitian descent but is fair-skinned, and her stage mother was played by a white woman. Having a black mother tell her darker-skinned daughter that her hair has to be perfect and she must strive for greatness because of her mother's sacrifices and how she doesn't want her to have a hard life, all hit differently. But the movie doesn't explore that, though Murphy seemed aware of the racial dynamics at play because Ariana DeBose mentioned in an interview that Murphy asked how she'd feel if they decided to cast a black woman to play her mother, who's objectively the antagonist of the film and openly homophobic, leading the charge on this hate campaign against Emma. So Murphy seemed aware of race during casting, but just didn't care enough to touch on it in the movie itself. What this movie does to push a happier ending is have Alyssa's mom come to her senses and show up to the prom telling everyone that she loves her daughter no matter what. The problem with this is that they don't do the work to earn it. In the few scenes we get of Mrs. Green, yes, a few, she's in like 3, she is unreasonable, petty, and refuses to give an inch. When Alyssa finally comes out, her mom doesn't hug her, she just walks away. In the musical, that's where it ends for her, but in the movie, she just shows up at the end. What happened in those few hours? Did she just have a glass of wine and suddenly unlearn years of prejudice? It's baffling because there was a clear way to make this work, while still giving Barry the depth they wanted. After Alyssa comes out and Mrs. Green storms out of the gym, Barry should have followed her. He is the product of parents who didn't accept him, the exact future Alyssa is currently facing. So imagine a conversation in the parking lot where Barry tells her what it was like to grow up feeling abandoned and like something was wrong with him because his parents couldn't love him. He could ask her if that's really what she wants for her daughter. Then we'd understand why she changed her mind, and Barry would get his big emotional scene, and therefore we wouldn't be forced to sit through him awkwardly yelling at Tracy Ullman. Did I forget to mention James Corden's not a good actor? By giving everyone a perfect, instant happy ending, it cheapens the story because the hard truth is that not everyone becomes tolerant in an instant. The show acknowledges that you can't win them all, but the movie says yes you can. I mean, look at the real-life story the original show was based on. In 2010, Constance McMillen was a senior in a high school in Mississippi where, just like Emma, she planned on going to the school prom wearing a tuxedo and bringing her girlfriend as her date. The school canceled the prom, but she ended up working with the ACLU to sue the school. Celebrities even got involved, but only to the extent of funding a second prom. But even after winning this lawsuit, Constance still ended up having to transfer schools because she was still being harassed. You can't win them all. Look, I don't want to sound like a total hater here. I do for the most part actually enjoy this movie. The music is fun, the production numbers are vibrant, and Meryl Streep is singing. But that's exactly why the flaws sting so much, because there is a version of this movie that could have been truly great instead of just fine. I also want to make one thing clear. I'm not saying that every queer story needs to be traumatic or end in a tragedy. We have enough of those. We deserve queer joy and we deserve happy endings. But for a happy ending to feel meaningful, it has to be earned. When you give this total 180-degree redemption in the same amount of time as a commercial break, it doesn't feel like progress, but like a weightless fantasy. The hard reality is that life isn't always a picture-perfect ending. Sometimes the love thy neighbor speech falls on deaf ears, and sometimes parents don't show up at the school dance. And that's okay. There is power in showing characters like Emma and Alyssa choosing each other and finding happiness, even when the world around them hasn't fully caught up yet. And I just wish the movie could have been about that.